Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to another live Q&A for KabU with highly respected and very well-loved senior Kabbalah teacher, Tony Kosinec. Great to see some familiar faces here. Hi, Simon. Always wonderful to see you. For those that don't have your camera on, if you're able to turn them on, that would be great. It's always deepens a connection when we can see you here, and it helps Tony to connect to your questions more as well. If you're viewing from Facebook and YouTube, you're welcome to ask questions as well. Just please post them in the chat. We have an expert technology team that gathers all of those questions, and we try to answer as many as we can during the broadcast. We also ask that you limit the chats just to the questions. Please hold the sidebar conversations. It just helps our tech team to grab those questions that much easier. And Tony, always great to be with you. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. And I'll turn it over to you.
Pleasure, honor. It's so nice. And your background is amazing. It's like you have a dark background. Did you just paint your wall or something?
Oh, daily, just for these events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice job. And there's no drips on your hair or anything. Very good. Hi, everybody. If you're a KabU student and you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, join the Zoom. Join the Zoom so we can talk to each other. And for the people who are watching on those platforms, we're going to be doing this for an hour, broadcasting for an hour, and then after that, we're going to have a private session for students, and also for people who become members of KabU. That will give you immediate access to the session that's going to happen afterwards. But we'll speak about that a little bit later. Yeah, like Mary said, if you're on here already, turn your camera on, because that certainly helps feel what's going on with you and what is happening between us. It also helps me really understand what you're actually asking. Often we don't really even understand ourselves what we're asking when we ask. This is a very special and amazing time right now. I don't think that there's ever been, well, not in our lifetime, not in this generation, has there ever been a situation, an environment in the world as there is now. Maybe there were other pivotal points in what we call history, but they weren't like this. They weren't so completely evident as to forces within human society and nature itself completely expressing themselves. And when they do that, it's usually that they're being expressed because nature is trying to evolve us in a quick way. And for us to evolving means to grasp consciously what nature is trying to do with us, where it's trying to take us, and to agree with it. That's what consciousness means in this case. We have situations. I got a list of things here, the things that we're seeing, and this is why a person would want to learn Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is not it's not some kind of abstract philosophy. It's not a religion. It's a science, and it's a science about human perception and how perception of reality changes. And well, why would you want to even change your perception of reality? Well, we're faced right now with circumstances where we are completely confounded by what we're seeing, and everything is at odds with itself in a very unusual way. You've got, and usually the way that these things play out is, say, just on the political level, or they'll play out as disasters in nature, or you'll see something happening in the economic system, or there'll be like an enormous breakthrough in technology, or a comet will hit the earth and the dinosaurs will go. But here, the things that we're seeing are directly on the issues of the law of nature and the role of humanity in that law. We've got this force, a political force, let's say, or a social force. And how else does nature send waves of guidance by means of its law, except through human society? That's how we are involved in nature. Inclusiveness, racism, anti-racism, the ideas about judgments of other people, while at the same time being completely and totally judgmental of the situation. Inclusiveness, this kind of universal openness and inclusion of every aspect of nature and of people, is a law of nature. It's part of the law of nature. It is. But it's not expressed in that way. And yet, it's being expressed to us in a certain way, in its inverse. Globalism. Now, there's feelings about it, left and right, good and bad. The inclusion, like trying to turn the planet into a single sort of social entity. This is also a law of nature, but not in the form that it's happening now, in which it's being sort of presented and pushed now. And yet it's still being presented, but it's being presented in its inverse, as all of these things are. Well, why would globalism be a principle of nature? Well, perhaps it's because nature is trying to show us its complete care and sovereignty of care over absolutely every part of everything. And it wants to manage everything as a complete whole. And it's requiring of us to match that in some way, but not in a top-down way politically or in terms of totalitarianism in order to make these things happen. Obviously not. There's a push also in society very much against these sort of actions that seem to be forcing us into compliance with the will of people. That's the only way it can present it to us, because we don't feel and see and perceive the acts of nature. And the most obviously supreme control is evident in the virus, in the pandemic. We don't understand it. We can't really control it. We think that there are measures that we can take on the physical level that are going to do something about this. And yet the real message that's happening here is that, no, nature is sovereign. Nature is the ruler. Nature determines absolutely everything. There's a single force and a single thought behind everything, and it does things for a reason. But we don't want to know the real reason. And this is why we would want to learn Kabbalah. Because we would want to know, we would want to perceive this not from our egoistic based, our total self-interest nature, which gives us absolutely no understanding into anything, doesn't tell us what we should be doing, what we could be doing, where are the handles on what's going on, how do we put this into balance, how do we understand these expressions from nature in such a way that we get the message and we rise to the kind of evolutionary transformation in our perception that allows us to get the message and fulfill it. Gender neutrality, gender fluidity, that is also, well, let's put it this way. What we think of as gender is not what gender is. And there's a meaning to male and female. And it is a meaning according to the spiritual law, and it's talking about an aspect of human responsibility and how that works and how we are constructed. It's not that we change anything on the physical level. We're made up of both of these forces, masculine and feminine force, but they're not physical forces. Because the whole physical level is actually our lack of proper perception of reality. We have here a kind of optical illusion in which everything is being presented, the law of nature is being presented to us like in our face, head on, and is trying to get us to flip this optical illusion so that we see it we're not mapping it out on the egoistic map, but we're mapping it out according to the single principle that governs everything in nature. This is what Kabbalah teaches. It teaches a person how to change perception of reality. And perception of reality has only to do with how we feel and act towards others. In that, everything that the disease that we're being faced with is a disease of disconnection, of not caring. But we can't just say, okay, I'm going to care. Okay, I'll care. We can't do that because our nature isn't like that. So how do we transform our nature? How do we rise above our nature without destroying this world? This is what the science of Kabbalah teaches. It teaches this transformation of perception of reality so that we understand what nature is saying to us, and we know what to do with it, how to do it, and how to do it together. So let's go to our first question.
Okay, thank you, Tony. You were just talking about perception of reality and the disease of not caring. So you may have answered the first question partially. Eddie from YouTube is asking, why is there suffering?
Well, it's for the same reason that you have to put fuel in a car. Something has to be, something has to motivate the vehicle. And our vehicle of growth, of evolution, is desire. Nothing happens unless there is a desire, and that desire is guided and it's measured by what guides that desire, and that's intention. Why, for what outcome, and for whose benefit is this desire appearing, and for whom do I want it to be fulfilled? Suffering is there to create a desire that has a correct intention behind it. We know that through the kinds of problems that happen emotionally and as a result physically and all that, from our turning away from other people, from having an intention only to fulfill ourselves, we know that this thing always brings trouble for us. We may try to disguise it, pretend that it isn't like that, but eventually there's a sensation in this suffering that starts to give us a real direction, and that sensation is shame. Very useful spiritual force. This shame begins to tell us precisely that point, that intention that is being used improperly. But we wouldn't have this desire, we wouldn't turn to it, we wouldn't even think about it if there wasn't the motivation of suffering specifically on that issue, and it's always only because of that. So the suffering provides us the creation of the only force that motivates things in reality, which is desire, and it also gives hints to us towards a correct intention behind that desire. It's a tool of nature that's there and is part of the evolutionary process. We can't do away with it. We need it. Mary?
Okay, thank you, Tony. I should have mentioned, if you're viewing here in Zoom, it's a great opportunity to ask Tony a live question. You just need to use the hand icon, and our tech team can direct you how to do that if you're not familiar with raising your hand. Otherwise, you're welcome to type your questions in the chat. We have several questions pouring in from YouTube, Tony. Next question from a YouTube viewer, RPS. What can we do against it, meaning the virus, here in Israel? They started with the third vaccination.
The only thing that we can do is to connect with each other. Connecting means to care for each other, to make certain that we are concerned about what's happening with other people, and to make our actions based on that. This is like the simplest kind of beginning point, but there's nothing physically necessarily that we can do. We do what makes sense medically. It's not always clear, but it doesn't matter because the entire process actually is coming from a much higher level. It's already determining everything. It becomes down to a question of whether or not we do whatever we do in order to think about the well-being of the whole and not just to protect myself. It's a life and death issue. Therefore, and it's not just a life and death issue for me. It is a life and death issue for everyone. And don't we want the people that we live with and that we care for to be thinking, I'm here for you? So we have to find a way that we can reach that kind of sincere intent towards each other. That's why learning the methodology of connection, the science of connection, which is Kabbalah, is so important. Even the simplest parts of it, even just learning the first principles, begins to aim us in that direction. And further down the line, when a person begins to learn the practical methodology, that's the thing, and share it with other people. Help other people also get a correct view of this optical illusion. Then coronavirus will not be needed. It's just a way of nature talking to us. If we do what we're supposed to do, then it's done what it needed to do, and it will go. Okay?
Okay, Bill, I see your hands up. We look forward to your question.
So, Tony, while meditating on the seffirot, I started to see connections with the chemistry I've been practicing for more than 40 years, environmental chemistry. Am I going crazy or gaining an insight? I've even specifically received insights about the virus, for example.
Well, you could be going crazy, and it could be true too. The insights start pouring through any corrected perception, and it's not necessarily based on meditation. I mean, it's more that you're looking to the right place, or more of a right place, for feeling what's going on, and those things happen according to what your need is. We don't only suffer; we also receive light or awakening, and until we're prepared to do it on nature's terms, which is through connection to others, then it gives us awakenings individually, which keep us inspired so that we'll continue to work until we come to the place where the real action, the real connection, and the true perception that can flip our entire perception over into the terms of real reality. Because the question is more like, what's the nature of nature? What is real perception? What does it hinge on? What makes events have to be the way that they are? This only comes when we ourselves are acting like nature, and that happens, Bill, when we're really, really working with other people. And it doesn't matter. It's not something that we can approach with our own mind, because it doesn't come through our own mind. It comes through a shared field, which is actually the creator's mind. In that connection, every act that happens, all understanding, all actions that we take, they're all exactly like the creator's action, because we're nullified to the creator's action. So our actions are his actions because we're out of the way. And it doesn't happen through the mind. It happens through relationship. So
May I say a little more?
please.
So 7 years ago, our eldest son took his own life. And we had
Sorry.
struggled for many years. Thank you. Many years to help him. I had to learn everything about health and medicine and disease and mental illness and all that sort of thing. And it taught me a tremendous amount. And then last March, my daughter called and said, I'm expecting. And we said, expecting what? A new job, a raise, very professional people. Never had time for anything. We thought they'd never have any more grandchildren. We have 3. Never thought we'd get any more. No, a baby boy. And so it just looked like the creator was trying to rebalance things for us. And then I started to get insights about the virus and things like that, and the balance between that is in nature. And in chemistry, we study pH, and there's a balance between alkaline and acid. And I'll finish this quickly. The virus requires an acid environment to get into the cell. So if you alkalinize and get your pH in balance, you're impervious to the virus.
Well, what you're talking about is that there is a natural force towards homeostasis.
Yes.
And the question is, what's homeostasis on what level? The problem here is that the physical and medical level is an outcome level. It's not a cause level. The cause of acidity and alkalinity, all of that stuff has a spiritual source. If we relate in the terms of spirituality, which is through connection and care for others, that balance, that homeostasis happens on all levels of nature, but it's not, you can't change the acidity level on the physical level unless you change it on the spiritual level. So it'll never be the answer. The answer always comes from the governing force.
So what is the acidity?
Yeah, well, even though that insight is correct, we have to correct it on the higher level, and we have to rise to that level.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And congratulations.
Hey, thank you for your questions, Bill. We have another live question or more than one question from Lyndon Smith. Go ahead, Lyndon.
Hi, Mary. Hi, Tony. Thank you ever so much. Hi, lovely to see you.
Hi.
Tony, I just want to ask, as far as the structure of KabU, I don't know whether it's pertinent to ask this question here, but I just want some clarity on a couple of things. Why does KabU instill in its students the necessity for us to study as a unit, and emphatically says that we must study as a unit, and but the converse to that is that you cannot achieve anything on your own as an individual. It has to be studied as a group within this specific group, which we refer to as a 10. And the second question I'd like to put is, why is there a necessity to segregate the men from the women, and what's the impetus behind that, please?
The nature works as a collective. Nature is a holistic, integrated unity. And we, in our nature, act like completely autonomous, separated parts. And our actions are mostly to the detriment of the system because of that. We work opposite to the law of nature. So how could we imagine that working individually would bring us any kind of perception into the nature of nature, into what it wants, how it acts, what its laws are, when we're working in the opposite? The only thing that working in the opposite does is create a need for us to to understand how it actually does work. But if we're working, if you have to be in a certain place, like if you're a chef and you've got to be in the restaurant to cook the meal for the people that are there, and you're at home, how are you going to cook that meal for them there? You have to be in the place where the work exists, where the light can act on you, because it works on the individual through the individual's reconnection to the whole of what that individual actually is, not the very small part that we consider to be ourselves. So the work is to get us, first of all, to get involved that way, even though every fiber in our body does not want to do that. And intellectually we have great arguments not to do it, and physically we have all kinds of things that will happen that will say, well, I can't because I'm not well, or I can't do this. It's like a wrong time. All of these things are all qualities that we are trying to work above. We don't do away with them because they're also necessary for our development. But unless we're working in the place where spiritual work actually occurs, we're not doing any spiritual work. So that's the answer to the first question. And it's about learning how to be able to do that regardless of what the ego says. About men and women, at the beginning parts of the work, when we're learning the concepts, the principles, it's all fine. It's like being at school and everybody's together in a big classroom. When the real work occurs, it's very much, very, very important that both men and women focus on the actual issues. And men and women, even though our souls are exactly the same here in this world, this is part of our egoism. The difference between us and the things that we want from each other. So if there are women studying with you in a 10, you're going to be doing things for reasons other than what you than the work itself. Ultimately, you're learning to do things so that you can help everybody, including women, and serve them actually, and help everybody fulfill what they need. But if you're distracted by what you want from women, or you're trying to impress them, or you feel intimidated, or you're not doing the work. And there are these two qualities, and the qualities are reception and bestowal. And in spirituality, reception is called female, and bestowal is called male. We don't want that to happen, so that that a woman does not get to be both things. If she's together with men, she's going to be she's going to naturally go to the reception mode internally, not externally. She may even fight this and saying, no, I'm strong and I do this and I'm equal. It's a complete distraction. This allows people, both men and women, to be both male and female spiritually, and to make those kinds of choices without confusing the issue. Later, it's a completely different question when we achieve something. Thank you. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lyndon. Lovely to see you too. Also, if you want to ask a question and you're typing it in the chat, please make sure that you're typing it to everyone. I just out of the corner of my eye see questions fielded to me directly. I can't grab those. I'm sorry, I don't see them. We just don't want to miss your questions. So use the drop down arrow, send the question to everyone so our tech team can grab those. Also, we'd love to know where you're viewing from. I see some friends have started sending in their locations. So if you want to type that in, I'll announce that in a few minutes. Okay, we have another live question, Tony, coming from Troy. Looking forward to your question, Troy.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Troy.
Okay, great. I'm in the graduate environment and just started our 10s. And I'm kind of feeling less connected right now than when everyone was together. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, it's so that you'll desire to overcome the old way of perception that you had about why you feel connected to something or other people, and do it for a higher reason. And that means that it'll be choice. It'll be a matter of choice. Before, you were used to certain things, and you had egoistic habits. I'm not saying just you bad Troy. I mean, everybody's like this. And you were dependent on those things. You had to receive a certain, amount into your for yourself, into your will to receive, in order to feel like, yeah, things are going well. I like this. I'm going to continue with it. I'm getting something out of it. But when things start to flip, and you get something out of it by only giving and not receiving necessarily, then you don't like it. And also, it's and that's an action of nature to push you away, so that you now are working with a greater amount of free will, because you're not doing it based on your nature. You're going to have to overcome a small quantum of that nature and connect regardless. And that means, well, you're not being forced by your will to receive to do it. And the creator's not saying, oh yeah, come on here. It's so good, and you're going to get more good. And you don't turn away either. This is in the best case scenario. You don't turn away just because you're not getting something for your ego that you're used to getting. So where are you? You're in a free will area. You're already, to that degree, outside of the influence of your will to receive, and you're also not being influenced by the creator. So it's you who's doing it. It's your agreement with a process that has nothing to do with your ego.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Actually, there's another question related to free will, now that you mention it, Tony, coming from Michael, viewing on YouTube. Could you speak more about free will? Could you explain the point at which we need to choose?
Well, there are continual points. I just spoke about one of them. We're always, every level of change that we go through, every correction that we go through, has a point at which we are presented with a kind of chaos and something that seems very opposite to us. And in order to enter the next degree, we have to just go nonetheless, because we don't understand the new reality that's being presented to us. These are small steps, but they don't feel that way to us. When we really feel like leaving the path because it's so opposite, it's so unlike everything else in the world, which thank God it is, because it's like a ladder from which we can get a view on this world and understand what's going on. Every time we go through one of those, it's huge to us. It's big. It's and there is always a question of free will as to whether or not we return to the egoistic world perception, the perception of the world and where we are, or whether we continue. That's when it's important. And because things change so much in a person, if they're really wanting to progress, that can happen many times a day. So you have the opportunity to use your free will. If you don't use it, then one falls out. So it's important. Mary.
Okay, thank you for your question. Just looking at the list of locations where everyone's viewing from today. We have Salt Lake City, Utah, the Netherlands, California, Colorado, South Africa, Idaho, England, Israel, Amsterdam, Washington, D.C., Italy, Denmark, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Toronto, New York, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Sacramento, California, Atlanta, Jerusalem, Renton, Washington, Dublin, Kuwait, New Mexico, Florida, Minnesota, New Orleans, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, PA. and Mexico. I see someone just typed in the chat. Thank you everyone for sharing those, and Venezuela, Curacao. Please continue to type those in the chat. I'll announce a few more of those in a while. Okay, we have another live question. Someone who was here right at the beginning of the broadcast. Can't wait to hear your question, Rodrigo.
Sure. Thank you. Hello, Tony.
Hi.
Hello. How to understand what is the next step that nature wants from me, and how to donate in the right way when I feel things a little stuck. You know, the company is stuck. I have partners who always want to win first. I've already invested a lot, and now would be their time. But they want me to put in more and more money, even though I have already given a percentage of the company I built. And look, they are bankers.
Well, bankers always want more and more money, don't they? We'd never know. We never know when we're in the midst of it, what is being asked of us, because we're using an egoistic perception under correction. We do feel, however, that we have to rise or change in some way, and it only becomes evident what that change was about once we've gone through it. You're talking about a situation, a work situation, and that's not what Kabbalah is focused on. And those work situations are byproducts of nature's developing us because it cares for the whole, and it also cares for each part of the whole. So it's like it's a thing that's happening to you personally, but there's no way to understand that action until you yourself are in a place where you have that concern for others, and then you begin to feel then nature's concern, or the Creator's quality of caring for the whole and balancing absolutely everything in that way. When you have a little piece of it, you can kind of feel why things are the way they are in the world according to where you're at, but it's way too early for that. And you have to judge those things in this world according to your rational understanding of whether you've got the leverage to invest more, or you've got to take some other action in relation to, you know what I mean. You have to solve that with your smarts, because and these things need to be, you have to see them as different. Your spiritual path is something above what you're doing here. It will affect it, but you don't know how it's going to affect it, and you won't for a long time. Nonetheless, it'll be affected and handled. But use your smarts here on this level, and use your desire in the spiritual.
Thank you.
Okay, Tony, we have a couple of related questions from YouTube viewers, Janelle Apostle and also Julie Dahan, very similar questions. First, is it possible for a child from the ages of 3 to 5 to recall the previous life when reincarnated? And if yes, why does this happen? And the related question, can a distinction be made between the concept of reincarnation and what Baal Hasulam refers to as changing your shirt?
Okay, let me answer the second one first, because it'll help with the first question. Reincarnation, spoken about in Kabbalistic texts, is speaking about basically about inner change, because that's the only reality. This life and death thing that we see externally is not. That's like a representation, a clothing on a much lower level, that in which we can feel, okay, nature operates like this. And here in the physical world, we see absolute endings, or we believe in this, and the complete burial and dissolution of the body. Reincarnation from the Kabbalistic text is speaking about the when we cease to use the ego, we cease to use the will to receive as what we call our life. And so it decays in the grave, so to speak. It's buried and it decays, and new life occurs. And this all happens internally. This is what at every correction level. And this is what Kabbalah speaks about. So we see a kind of a passion play of this on the physical level, as though there was really this physical world, and as though there were breaks between life and death, but there aren't. So yeah, a child or somebody could have a sense of reincarnation, memory of their past lives. Those things are usually emptied for us because what we call life no longer fits the definition that we had. So in I don't know what the percentage is. I'm no expert on this. But mostly we forget all that stuff because we're building a completely new perception, internal perception. But of course it's possible. The reasons for it, I can't go into. It would be like a really long thing, and I'd probably be wrong about most of it. Okay, I think that answers those questions. I could go on for a long time.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Paul, I do see your hand up. We're just going to jump to a couple more YouTube questions, and then we'll come back to you. These are two other related questions, Tony, from Lee Dauphin and Mars Chanel. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I'm new. How crucial is this connection to others, this whole notion of connection? And when you keep saying connection to others, do you mean our biological family, our friends, or specifically others studying this method?
Others studying with you, and which, as you progress, you'll be learning the practical aspect of this, in which you will be working with other people. So that will be provided. It's the crux of the matter. It is absolutely crucial. It is where the work is done. It's where the Creator is found, in the connection between. Not in any of the dark points called me or you, but in the light that is working on the reconnection of a single living being, which is us, the whole of humanity, and all of the animal species, and all the planets, and all of the invisible forces, and all of that. That is a single reality that we have taken a position that we are exiled from this. We don't partake of it. It's outside of us. We don't really feel it. Most of it's irrelevant to us. Connection means to see and feel this as though it were our own body, and it is. And I don't mean the physical body, but what else is going to give that sense? What else can you call this sensation of a single eternal being other than connection, if your starting point is complete isolation in every way? So the work is achieved through work with people who also have this same goal, because that's like a really good control situation where you can tell, you can measure things. Your connection to your family is a natural one. It's helped along by nature and hormones and things that are not, they're not you doing it. You're not really doing free will there. But it's like that, and we should have that kind of feeling that comes towards others, starting with the ones that we work with, as though we just got a shot of hormone as a mother, when you're giving birth or after, or even it happens for men too. where you can't control it. You just love your child without question. This we learn how to agree with and have free will about in relation to those we have no family connection to, and that's spirituality. So it is crucial.
Hey, Lee and Mars, thank you. Those were great questions. Okay, now we're going to go to you, Paul. Thanks for waiting in the wings, so to speak.
Yeah, you can hear me? Yeah,
I can. Hi, Paul.
okay. Hi. In Kabbalah in Action, the course, there is some focus on playing with the idea of pretending to be in a bestowal attitude. If you can make it, you fake it. In one of a former forum question or reflection, I came to the same experience. I wrote about it, but it still doesn't feel good. Fake it, fake it, fake it. Acquiring something while giving an unreal impression, making duck faces on Instagram. There must be more to it, and there is more to it. But can you explain more about it? How do you fake lolishma, the bestowal?
Okay, lolishma. Just to clarify for people who are watching, who aren't studying, is to not be doing what you're doing out of pure bestowal. You're doing it in order to do it as an effort to reach real bestowal, which
fake it.
Okay, so that's for the other for the people who are watching on YouTube and so on. Faking. First of all, we don't know what's real and what's not real, and the way that we grow is through imaginative frameworks, because we are only desire. We are only desire, emotion, and intention. That's all that we are. And if we do this, imaginative is the wrong word, but if we place ourselves as though a certain thing, even without really understanding what it is, we are now putting ourselves under the influence of forces that now have a matrix in which to develop us. If you don't try to imagine this and pretend it like before it actually is fulfilled for us, if we stay back, then we don't grow. We haven't taken any step. And in a place where you don't know anything about what your next form would be, the only action you really can do is to take steps as though, and what you imagine that it might be, even if it's wrong. Because when you take a step like that, now it can work, and it can say, no, a little bit. Nature starts working like this. No, it's a little bit like that. You begin to have insights from the point of view of this next state, just because you said you're imagining it. This isn't a lie. This is building an ephemeral framework of a new state using your desire and your free will. Do you see the difference between those things?
I have to experience it. So
Yeah. I believe it. It's like it's amazing what can happen. And the other thing is that you begin to feel responsible. Like you go into, like, if you never try to do something, put yourself in the position where you're something's at stake for you, and like you make this like claim, I am the most caring person in the world, and they go, you better be, and then you go, yeah, you're right, I better be, and now there's like some real force and like spiritual force on you to look for how you can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Tony, you mentioned desire and pure bestowal. Nicole from South Africa, viewing on YouTube, wants to know, what does it mean to love according to Kabbalah?
Where is she from?
From South Africa and viewing on YouTube.
YouTube. Love is the thing that connects complete opposites. And it does it for the well-being of that thing that's opposite. It's making a connection even though there's a fundamental hatred, like an opposition. Love is no less than that. It's loving when you hate. They both happen at the same time. Love, it's like in the form of the law of nature, which is love your friend as yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. And that means no matter what they do or what you feel, more in the direction of what you feel towards them, because they actually don't really exist. So this is like a sovereign force. How could there be some kind of connection where things are absolutely in opposition? Even religion, divides between God and the devil and all this kind of stuff. How can there? No, this is like the sovereign force that connects these two things regardless. That's love. That's the kind of thing that we need to aim for. But you can't do that on your own, and you know that you can't. And you've tried it, and you know there is no such thing as individual unconditional love. There is, however, a force of light between people that does the unconditional love and the connection. And that's the thing we need to open up. You can't expect to do this on your own. There's a way to do it, and nature only does it through with the help of the connection that we get from other people even before we try to do this. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. I'm sure a lot of people have that same question. Just a few more locations, Tony. The viewers dropped in the chat. We have viewers also from Berlin, Jacksonville, Florida, Rwanda, Mesa, Arizona, Alberta, Canada, and Haiti. Okay, and going to the next question from David Fournier. What if someone is drawn to this wisdom, but very introverted? Viewing from YouTube, by the way.
Well, everybody's introverted. That's our nature. And the more time that we spend thinking about ourselves, the more introverted we become. That's like whatever we concentrate on, where our thoughts are, is the world that we see. Now, all of us are the will to receive. Everybody who's studying here, these students that are on Zoom, and it's not just these people that are here, there are thousands of people actually who are studying. They're all just like that. Nobody wants anything to do with anybody else unless it's like a party or, that kind of thing, or we're going to have some nice intellectual discussions or that kind of. An introvert doesn't even want that, won't go to a party. But it's the same fundamental nature that is doing that to all of us, and we are not happy in that. There's no pleasure in that. There's nothing but limitation in it. And what everybody is here to learn, and you also, just by listening to this or watching this, is to learn how to change this little tiny vessel that we've got into some very large and expanding vessel that is constantly filled up with fulfillment. Where are we going to get fulfilled if not from other people? Even if we think we're watching television or like we're watching Netflix or something, we're getting fulfilled by ourselves, we're not. The reality of that is that there was it's a huge production involving hundreds of people for all kinds of different reasons, with all kinds of forces on them that we can't see and we can't measure, all coming into play there. So society comes in an organized way through Netflix and includes you in a society, because that's what you want more than anything else, is that pleasure of relating and of adventure with other people. but we have it like in a surrogate way when we act on our introverted nature. I'm an introvert. You have no idea what I have to go through to get myself up for this, to talk to you. But what I want is you. I mean, I want the connection with you. I want to be with you. I want to have fun with you. I want to share something with you. And what's better to share than the most important thing? So what do? You get in there and you start working with it, because that's what you need in order to achieve the highest state. You need to be as introverted as you are to reach the highest state.
The broadcast is not over. For those of you that haven't joined us before, what that sound means is that this is time for a blitz. And I bet Tony thought he was going to skate by this broadcast without one. Sometimes we run these earlier in the broadcast. Tony has 3 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. Mind you, they're short answers, abbreviated answers, but it's a little bit of a fun competition.
Unless you asked a question and you're pissed off because I just gave you some snarky answer, but here we go.
Okay, timer's on. Is developing your soul something like going back in time somehow?
Oh no, it's the opposite.
Ramak or Ari, who should one choose?
The Ramak chose the RE, was a student of the RE.
Is lolishma similar to karma yoga and Bhagavad Gita?
No, it's kind of like a box of chocolates. No, I can't compare the two. They're different systems.
So are all the chocolates. Trying to reach outside my senses, won't that leave my vessel open for something else to take my place?
No, what you desire is your vessel, and you never leave it at home.
Why is separation necessary?
So that we want connection.
Can dangerous work be done with these laws of nature that Kabbalists hid from the public?
A person cannot use the laws of nature at all unless you rise to their level, so it's got a fail-safe in it.
Can I have a desire that did not come from the Creator?
You cannot.
Does Kabbalah utilize the Merkava? Does this vehicle assist with ascension and adhesion?
You don't understand what Merkava is. Everything in Kabbalah is Merkava.
What is the serpent in the garden? Is it an archetype of God created for the purpose of establishing balance in the material universe?
It's our ego.
Where can we learn to control our energy?
By desiring, it's what you desire that controls everything.
If I don't keep religious law with intention, can I still progress spiritually?
Yes.
If I don't know oral Torah, how can I progress?
This is oral Torah. Kabbalah's oral Torah.
Are Kabbalistic meditations, meaning visualizations of the letters, zodiac signs, and planetary influences, part of the true Kabbalah teachings?
There's an aspect of zodiac, but not the kind that we think of in this world, and the rest of it, no, they're not part of it.
If angels are forces, is anything wrong with asking them for protection? When do they come around?
We don't need to talk to angels. They're forces. Try talking to electricity. We talk to each other and through each other to God.
How can one be a giving, good person?
By learning how to do that with other people.
How can God help submit the ego?
No, we have to make efforts. We have to need it, and then the upper light can help us.
If we have climbed the whole ladder, will we hear the Creator say, "Let us create humans"?
You can hear me say it. I don't quite understand the question, but if you climb the ladder, you begin to hear what even before you reach the top.
How can we correct the egoistic desires to benefit others?
By learning Kabbalah.
How do you raise Mon practically?
With others, for others.
Okay, you're done. That's 19. That's pretty close to the record.
Wait a minute. Are we done because you ran out of questions or we ran out of time?
We ran out of time.
Oh, okay.
3 minutes, 1 second.
Okay, I think that's the record, isn't it?
I think yeah, that's pretty close. I can't remember what's the record. Lyndon is asking. 19 is great work anyway. I agree with you, Lyndon. 19 is awesome. If you are a KabU student, you can take your questions for elaborated answers to the forum, by the way. Okay,
no,
do we have time?
I just want to say that the question about Merkava, I was trying to find the shortest way to express, and I said you don't know what Merkava is, meaning to say that it's not what you read, and unless a person is doing the work, one cannot understand what it is, and it's something very simple and very close to people.
Okay, thanks, Tony. We have time for one more question, by the way. This comes from a YouTube viewer who asked a question earlier, Mars Channel. I am surprised almost an hour has passed. In the upper world, does a gathering like this produce sparks in our hearts?
Absolutely. And time is not, the second hand or the seconds hand on a clock moving around. It's the change of states that we go through. And we can go through many, many, many. And obviously when you enjoy something, it goes by quickly. So I take that as a good sign that you feel that way. I want to tell you, since we're going to be ending this part of our broadcast, that after this, we have we continue this on Zoom with the students, and it's a sort of a private session in which we talk about things that are going on with students. I ask them questions, or we are discussing stuff, or speaking about the learning process that we're going through, and we will be ending the social media broadcast in a minute or so. But if you want to join that, all you have to do is become a KabU member, and you have immediate access to that, and you could come in and you can listen to that, and you could be part of that more personal discussion. Thank you very much, everybody. These were really good questions, and lots of them. And Mary, I think you've got some announcements for us.
I do, yes. Thank you, Tony. To elaborate on what Tony just announced about becoming a KabU member. If you're not already a KabU member, then we invite you to join. You can see the links in the chat, so please pay attention to that. You'll also gain access to several Kabbalah courses from beginners to advanced level. You can join one of the largest online Kabbalah communities. The ability to ask instructors questions through a forum, as we mentioned earlier, and access to KabU exclusive weekly webinars. Also, you get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course with Tony starting on August 22nd. So you can look for that information in the chat. And if you find our content valuable, you'd like to support KabU, you can do so in one of two ways. Become a KabU member and get access to all the KabU courses and join the online community with like-minded spiritual seekers, video on demand, and exclusive weekly live events, and much more. Again, you can become a KabU member, or if you'd simply like to make a donation to help us produce these courses, live broadcast, and help maintain all of these platforms. And you can find all those links in the chat. Echoing what Tony already mentioned, thank you for amazing questions today. And we'll see those in Zoom on the other side. Thank you.
We are all one body, we all have different roles. We unite and draw the line, it's up to us.